For 4 decades, there's been this one band that's just a complete walking contradiction. I mean, they're a force of pure, absolute chaos that somehow became one of the biggest, most successful rock bands on the entire planet. Their story? It's not just about hit songs. It's a wild lesson in how to survive. 40 years. Think about that for a second. They've gone from being these scrappy kids in the LA punk scene back in the early 80s to selling out massive stadiums all over the world today. That's a journey that almost no band ever gets to make. And along that journey, they've sold over 120 million records. I mean, let that number really sink in. This isn't some little indie darling. We're talking about a commercial juggernaut. It's just insane. So, that brings us to the big question, the central puzzle of the whole thing. How did one of the most chaotic, self-destructive, and unpredictable bands in rock history become one of its most resilient? That's the story we're going to unpack right now. To really get it, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Back to a bunch of high school friends hanging out in Los Angeles. Okay, Section 1, the Chaos Formula. This whole thing was forged in LA funk and punk. What they were doing was this incredible, beautiful mess. It wasn't just punk, and it definitely wasn't just funk. It's like they took the raw, I don't care energy of punk and just slammed it right into these super tight, really sophisticated funk grooves. It was explosive, built on pure power, and just wild in-the-moment improvisation. And their whole vibe, it was just as nuts as their music. Before they were even the Chili Peppers, they had this amazing name, Tony Flo and the Miraculously Majestic Masters of Mayhem. And yeah, they got famous, or maybe notorious, for performing with, well, nothing on but some strategically placed socks. It was shocking, it was funny, and it was pure Hollywood. But here's the thing about that kind of chaos. It always comes with a price. And for them, it led to the first huge crisis in the band's history. Section 2, Tragedy and Fracture. The revolving door begins. Right from the very start, the band's foundation was just incredibly shaky. The original lineup with Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons had to split up before they even recorded their first album, all because of other record deals. This constant changing of guitarists and drummers, this revolving door, it really defined their early years. And all that instability followed them right into the studio. On their first album in 1984, the producer, Andy Gill, was trying to polish them up, make them sound clean and ready for the radio. But the band just fought him every step of the way. They wanted to capture that raw, out-of-control energy of their live shows. Even they admit the album was kind of like the first pancake you make. You kind of have to throw it out, but you needed to make it to get to the good ones. Eventually, they did it. They finally got the 4 original friends back together in one room to make an album, 1987's The Uplift Mofo Party Plan. And creatively, it was a massive success. This was the sound they'd been chasing. But the whole thing was just completely haunted by the deepening heroin addiction of both Anthony Kiedis and Hillel Slovak. And that right there, that's the Chili Peppers paradox in a nutshell. And then, the absolute worst happened. On June 25th, 1988, Hillel Slovak died of an overdose. He wasn't just their guitarist, he was the creative soul of the band. And his death just shattered them. The drummer, Jack Irons, was so devastated, he just quit. He said he couldn't be in a band where his friends were dying. And just like that, the original Red Hot Chili Peppers were gone. But this is what's so incredible about this band. Right when it seems like it is absolutely over, that's when they have their first and maybe their most important rebirth. Section 3, the classic rebirth, finding the definitive lineup. So Kiedis and Flea are pretty much left with nothing. The band is toast. But they decide to rebuild it from scratch, and they find 2 new guys. First, an 18-year-old guitar prodigy and massive Chili Peppers fan named John Frusciante, and then this powerhouse drummer from the Midwest, Chad Smith. This wasn't just another lineup change. This was the lineup. And they also found a new creative partner, the legendary producer Rick Rubin. Now, Rubin was the complete opposite of that first guy, Andy Gill. He didn't want to clean them up. He wanted them to be more vulnerable. He's actually the one who famously found a private poem Kiedis had written about loneliness and addiction and said, "That's a song." And that song, of course, became Under the Bridge. All of that came together and created Blood Sugar Sex Magic. They recorded it in this big, creepy mansion that was supposedly haunted, and the album was just a phenomenon. We're talking more than 7 million copies sold in the US alone. This was the moment they stopped being a chaotic LA band and became international superstars. Period. But you know how this story goes. With that kind of superstardom comes a whole new set of problems. The chaos doesn't go away, it just changes form. Section 4. Superstardom's dark side. The weight of fame. See, not everyone was ready for that kind of success. John Frusciante, that young guitar genius, he hated it. He couldn't stand the jump from playing in sweaty little clubs to these massive arenas. So in the middle of a tour in Japan in 1992, he just quit. He walked away. The rest of the band was completely blindsided. So they scrambled and they brought in another incredible guitarist, Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction. But the chemistry, it just wasn't right. Navarro's style was heavier, more layered, and the Chili Peppers' core was all about that loose, funky improvisation. It just didn't mesh. Flea summed it up perfectly later. He said, "I felt like I was in a cover band. The magic was totally gone." So once again, the band hits a creative dead end. And that sets the stage for what is, honestly, their most miraculous comeback yet. Section 5. A melodic renaissance. The return of Frusciante. By 1998, the band was on the verge of collapsing, so Flea went to visit John, who had been through a terrible, life-threatening drug addiction but was now sober, and he just asked him to rejoin the band. The album they made next was Californication, and it just exploded. I mean, look at this. The album with Navarro, One Hot Minute, sold 2 million copies. Californication sold 7 million. It was like a lightning bolt. The definitive lineup was back, and the whole world noticed. And that comeback kicked off the most stable and successful period of their entire career. Frusciante came back with this new focus on melody and beautiful textured guitar playing, and that led to this unbelievable string of huge albums, Californication, Then By the Way, and the massive Grammy-winning double album Stadium Arcadium. They had officially evolved from those punk-funk maniacs into rock elder statesmen. And that brings us to their modern era, where, what do you know, the cycle of chaos and rebirth is about to play out all over again. Section 6, the resilient legacy, the cycle repeats. You can almost see it coming at this point, can't you? After the massive tour for Stadium Arcadium, a totally exhausted John Frusciante leaves the band, again. This is in 2009. He's replaced by Josh Klinghoffer, who stays for a full decade. But then, in 2019, the band feels like that old connection is missing. So Klinghoffer is fired, and guess who rejoins for a third time? John Frusciante. The pattern of fracture and rebirth just keeps on going. And that really leaves us with the final thought here. Their entire 4-decade story is defined by this incredible resilience, this pattern of completely falling apart and then somehow rebuilding, often stronger than before. So the question isn't if they'll face chaos again. They always will. The real question is, after all this time, what does their next rebirth even look like?